So culture over there is super unique because, um, just like you said, you have four different cultures you're dealing with over there, especially when you're a Russian speaker. Because as a Russian speaker, I spent time in Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, all three of them, and I spent ample time in each of them, at least 6 months in each country. And so, saying that, you have to deal with all those cultures, and Lithuanian and Latvian culture are a little similar, but they still have major differences. And Estonian culture is very different than Latvian and Lithuanian. And Russian culture is different from all of them. And so you have all these really unique cultures you have to deal with. Now, as a Russian speaker, obviously you're going to focus on the Russian culture in the Baltics. And it's a very prideful one. It's super interesting because they're living in the Baltics, but talking to them, you wouldn't know it. You'd think they're still living back in Mother Russia because, to them, Russia is the best. It's the highest standard of anything, and it's the best country in the world, and Russia is the most amazing thing that could have happened to Earth. And if you don't understand that, then you're wrong. So, according to Russians in the Baltics. And so it's really hard for them to get along with the native people there as well. It's a unique situation because, a lot of these Russian peoples, you know, their families didn't originate there in the Baltics. Yeah. Their families didn't originate there in the Baltics. What happened was when the Soviet Union took over the Baltic states, they deported a lot of the native population, so a lot of the native Estonians, Lithuanians, Latvians, and then imported a lot of Russians to more Russianize the populations there. And, sometimes there'd be specialists from different parts of the Soviet Union, and they would all, move there just as what the Union needed, Like I know in Estonia, there's a lot of Ukrainians there. There's a lot of Ukrainian construction workers who built a lot of buildings in Estonia. And now that the Soviet Union has fallen, though, they're still living there, but they're no longer have that Russian type government to identify with. And there's a lot of prejudice actually against the Russian peoples living in the Baltics. People like Estonians, Latvians, Lithuanians. I'm not going to say all of them because some of them do get along very well with Russians, but a lot of them have this really resentment towards Russian people because of the way they were oppressed by the Russian government when the Soviet Union was there. So the Soviet Union preached, yeah, we're all equal, we're all one, but that wasn't the case. They favored Russians way more than any other people. And they, in fact, persecuted and deported a lot of Estonians, Lithuanians, and Latvians. And so now that that government has fallen, and now that the government is run by actual native Baltic peoples, the Russians there are heavily, well, I wouldn't say heavily, but they are persecuted in a lot of ways. They're withheld a lot of jobs. A lot of times Russians have to do like the lower kind of class jobs and stuff like that. I just remember a couple instances where people told me, if you're going up for a job against, let's just say you're in Lithuania, you go up against a Lithuanian candidate. A lot of times the employer won't even look at your resume; he'll just look at your last name. And if you have a Russian last name and he has a Lithuanian last name, guess who's going to pick? The Lithuanian guy. And again, that's not the case everywhere there, not all the time, but from a lot of people we talked to, that seemed to be the sentiment there. And also another problem was, the Russians living there. Again, they were so prideful about their home country and their home culture, which, is good. It's good to take pride, obviously, in where you come from. But the problem was it got in the way of them adapting and, integrating with peoples that were of the Baltics. And so you have these two very distinct cultures, the culture of people in the Baltics and the Russian pride culture, and they clash. They don't mix at all. And they both hate each other because one hates the other. The Baltic culture hates the Russian culture because they felt like they were so oppressed by Russians for so long under the Soviet Union. And the Russian culture hates them because they're not Russia and because they feel persecuted right now. And so you have to understand that going in. There were a lot of times I only spoke Russian. I didn't speak Lithuanian or Latvian or Estonian. And I'd be contacting on the streets and I'd see a Latvian man, and I knew most Latvians spoke Russian anyways, so I'd try to contact him, and they would get super offended, and they would yell at me and get angry, and they'd be like, why are you talking to me in Russian? I'm a Latvian, and I'm proud of it. We're no longer oppressed by those people, And they had some choice words, for him and stuff, and I was just like, I'm just a missionary, I'm not involved in this, but, going in, you have to understand those kind of cultural differences and go along with that. And it's hard because you want to be there for everyone. You want to help all people. And, but as a Russian speaker, you are there mainly to teach the Russians, and you have to understand that. And you kind of have to make a choice that you want to be really involved in that culture, and less with the others. I mean, obviously it's good to make friends with everyone there. And there were so many like Latvians and Estonians and Lithuanians that I loved while I was there. And they were great, great people, amazing people, but being a Russian speaker, my job, my calling was to focus on those people.
Okay.
Russian cuisine is interesting. There's some parts of it that aren't too different from ours. It's very bland though. So if if you're used to tons of Mexican food or spicy Asian food, you're going to be kind of disappointed because a lot of our meals were just boiled potatoes and dill, or just cuts of meat with a little bit of salt. And I mean, that's what they eat and they love it. And you just gotta kind of be prepared for that. But the borscht is to die for. Ukrainian borscht is incredible. And it's really good hot. If they can't, sometimes they'll serve it to you cold, but if you can get it to serve it to you hot. So it's beet soup, which I know a lot of people are like, ew, beets, but it's got lots of good stuff in there. And believe me, on a cold Baltic winter day, you want some good hot borscht, and you just want to gulp it down, and it will warm your body and soul. So try to get involved with as much cultural activities as you can. We had the cool privilege to go to a wedding, like a Russian style wedding while we were there, and they had it in our branch building, so it was funny. But they got to do all these cool Russian traditions, and if you just really immerse yourself in that, you're going to have so much more fun. I saw some missionaries who were, I don't know, they just didn't really take well to the culture, and they still wanted to be like American, and which is great, but I just feel like you're never going to forget how to be American. So why not take this opportunity to like really delve into a culture that's not your own and really like learn to love it and love the food and the cool celebrations, the parties they have. And again, the wedding was so much fun. There was all this fun stuff they did. Like they'd yell, kiss, kiss, kiss as loud as you can, like every like 5 minutes, and like for the bride and groom to kiss. It was hilarious. And so we'd always Gorka, Gorka every time. So just immerse yourself in that kind of stuff. If there's ever opportunity to go to a traditional Russian event, or if you can make a church activity into like a cultural Russian event and get the members involved, that is the coolest thing ever. Always try to get involved in that stuff, because it's just going to make your mission so much more fun. And you can come on with cool stories and like cool traditions and recipes that other people don't have, and you can share it with people here, and it's just super fun.